Hello. Welcome back to the studio tonight. Alright, so tonight I thought we would do a little flower. I picked out a hollyhock. Where I grew up in our backyard, we had a lot of these hollyhocks, lots of different colors, all the way from light pinks like this into dark burgundies. Fantastic flowers, just some really dramatic appeal to these. So we're going to paint the background dark just like this, some light petals with some dark purple or burgundy interiors. We're going to draw some veining on those. They're going to look fantastic when we're done. So let's just jump right in with that. I've got mine sketched out right here, and I'm just going to grab a medium-sized brush. This happens to be a number 4. I'm going to mix up a little paint. We're just going to jump right in. I've got 2 reds going for me here. If you can see, a little bit more orangey red and a little bit, this is a more red. I'm kind of going to mix both of those, but I want this first wash of these to be a little bit light. And I do have a little color on my brush right now, but mostly I'm worried about getting some water on here so that we can get a nice gradient from the outside of our leaves, petals, right into the inside. Just make sure we got some nice color on that. I'm going to leave that center without a whole lot of color on it, just for the second. Get right in there. Alright, I'm going to take some of this darker color and just dab it in like that. And I'm going to let that just flow out of there however it really wants to. I'm going to move right on to my next one while it's doing that. Let me get just a little color on my brush. And that's going to flow out in a nice natural pattern for us. It's going to do basically all of our painting work for us. We're not going to have to do too much to that. We might come back at the end and put a little extra darkening into the center of that, but for the most part, let me grab a towel here, it's going to do all the work for us. And this one, I got some dark right around that. Just picking a little bit of that color up, just barely touching it, letting it flow out. I'm going to do this leaf here, again, mostly water. This leaf, I've called them leaves 3 times already. This petal, these petals, plural. Alright, here we go, still going. Trying to keep that nice and wet so that when I come back in, that water will just flow, the paint will just flow right around. Look at this one looks really good there. I like that. It'll give us just a really natural looking thing here, and this is way back right inside there. There we go. Good. Now we've got a couple of other flowers sketched on here. I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of water on them. This one here, this is the hardest thing for me. I draw it, and I know what it looks like when I draw it, and it looks pretty good when I draw it. And then I go to paint it, and I totally get lost. I forget exactly what I've painted, what's supposed to be what in there. When I start painting leaves, petal color, and petals, leaves color, and whatnot, and hilarity ensues. But this one I think I'm doing pretty good on. Let's see, I've got a little color in the back there, but I'm going to let that one be for just a second. Alright, let me pull this down like that. And again, a little bit darker at the base. If I can put just a little bit of that color back there, that's pretty good. I think I've got one back here. Let's see. Alright, and oops, well, it comes on this side. I know that right in the middle there. That's a leaf. We're going to come back to that. I know. Let's see. Leaf, 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 leaf. And this one up here. What do I have back here? I got one that's way back here. A flower. Let's see. That's kind of coming off behind that one. Just going to leave ever such a little highlight back there. Here, I've got just a little bit of, I'll take it back that far. There we go. Alright, now let's take a look if we can. Got a little extra water there that I didn't want. I'm going to dab that off a little bit. I'm going to come back. This one is mostly dry. I'm going to darken this up. I've got a brown here that's got a lot of red in it. Let's see, I don't know if you can see that. It's going to help me darken this color just a bit. I'm going to add even a little bit more red to that. And right along the center of these, it'll help to really darken these up. Let's see, there we go. Something like that. I could have used made it purplish or something like that. I don't know. I think this is going to look fantastic. Good, good, good. And that's going to bleed out a little bit, but it's going to make it just a more intense color right in the middle of that. Yeah, it bled a little bit off to the side there, but you know what? I'm not going to touch it. The tendency is to touch that and do something with it. I don't want to do that. I just want to let that be. Right now, I'm going to start mixing up some green for our stalks and for our leaves here. Let me see, I got a little spray bottle. Can moisten my green a little bit. Really helps out. There we go. That gets it going. I love these little bottles. If you don't have a little bottle like this, I happen to have two of them sitting here handy. Those are great. You give a little spritz on there. It helps to get your color flowing and everything. And it's great when you're starting that way. The other thing that's really nice about that is when you are done, you can spritz it right on here, re-wets everything, and it will make it so much easier to clean your palette. Let's see. I think I'm going to use kind of a bigger brush here. So I can get this background on pretty quickly. Yes, oops, background. When I said background, I don't want, what am I doing? These are leaves, not backgrounds. Alright, let's clean that off real quick. I'll tell you what, I'll use a flat one for this too. So I'm going to just get a little bit of ochre in there. Again, I'm going to wet it just ever so slightly. There we go. That's good, that's better. Okay. So let's see how we do this. This will be easier with this because these leaves are really kind of pointed. Ones have some hard edges on them. And these brushes are real nice. You can paint a hard edge. You just hold it down and go. And if you use the pointed side, you get a nice point. You can just lay it down and on its side, get a lot of color out of it at once. Really a versatile brush. This is, I guess it's called an angle shader. I found it to be really a pretty useful brush. Let's see. For a lot of straight lines that I do, if you try to do it with a round brush, you'll notice, I'm sorry, I gotta flip this over for a second. You'll notice that you draw a line and it'll get all shaky sometimes, or it'll be fat in some places and skinny in other places, and it's just not exactly what you want. But this angle shader really can help you out with that. Like right along there. You can just put that out like that. Comes to a nice point. Really a nice brush to have in your arsenal. At one point I used this almost all the time. It really is such a nice brush to use. And you see, you just Put a little pressure on, and you can get some pretty detailed lines if you need them, and if you don't, add a little more pressure and you get a little finer line. Let's see, right up here on this bud, if I get a little bit of that red mix in there, that's okay. Just like with a lot of, oh, I missed a little flower right there. That's alright, I'm going to come back in and put this in real quick. Just saw a little bit of a flower hanging out right there. Thought we had that whole thing. That's alright, there we go, we got it. Easy as that. I'm going to drop my cloth. Excuse me, I got something in my throat all of a sudden. Alright, I'm going to put these couple leaves on here. A little more ochre in here maybe. Just mix this color up a little bit. Put it back there. Then for a lot of this, you're just going to be able to tap right on there and pull across. Or you can draw in a line. I'm just going to put our stalk on here. We're going to come back and do a little bit more with our stalk. Give it a little dimension in a couple of minutes here. Got kind of a rounder leaf right there. That goes out. Now this leaf has had a little bit of a chance to dry. I think, there we go. Alright. Oh, I forgot to draw some lines in there. That's okay. Let's see. What else can we do? I think we're going to dry this real quick, and we're going to give this a second coat, and then probably start on the background. So let's give it a quick dry. Okay, so what we've got to do now is we've got to decide where our petals are. We've got to put in a little bit of darkness in a petal that's behind one, and a little bit, well, we don't put in a little bit of lightness in the one that's in front, but I guess we'll put in a little bit of darkness just on the edge of something that's behind. And then I've got a watercolor pencil that we're going to use to hopefully put in some veins. I should have put them in before when it was wet, but we'll make it work right now. Let's see, a leaf, one where I've got some definite overlap is right here. I got the wrong color on that brush. That's okay. I'm going to get this a little bit wet, just a tiny bit damp. Because again, I want this water to really not flow out of there, but I just want it to spread out just ever so slightly. There we go. You see, I just barely have any water on there, barely any pigment on there. And when we put it on, all of a sudden, this leaf comes forward, that leaf goes back, and we don't need much. We just need to decide where that's going to be. Let's see. This one is kind of all furled up here, so I'm just going to kind of alternate like that. That's an easy one. These are easy. Just put a little dab of color on these to make sure we still have some red. Alright, now here's where we can do this in a little better way, a little bigger format. Alright, so I'm deciding that this leaf right here, give me just a little bit of that color, is just in the back. So I'm just gonna give this a little color all the way out, and I'm gonna There we go. And I don't know, I hope you can see this. All of a sudden, this leaf is just a tiny tone darker than the ones right next to it. It's exactly what we want. See, I'm going to do that on this side over here. So it's totally dry. I'm going to make this petal just go behind all the way down. There we go. That's it. All the way down and just get a little color. There we go. There we go. Same thing over here, just ever so slightly more. Let's see. I think over here, this one is going to be just behind. And if I add just a touch of color, it just pushes it right back. Just pushes it back right behind there. Alright, and we could just keep doing this all night. We just keep going. There we go. That little bit pushes that leaf, that petal back. This one in the foreground. I'm going to do a little bit on this side. In essence, what we're doing is we're just adding the tiniest bit of shadow on there. Just ever so slight. Enough to let your eye know that something is there, but not enough that we're actually making a difference in the picture. All right, there we go. We just did that whole one right there. Okay, down here, I'm going to give a little bit here and a little bit over here, and that's really going to set this one back. We'll just use that as that whole petal. And we know that these get a little darker at the base and lighter as they go out. There we go. We got this big one to decide on. I'm going to go right there is what I'm talking about. That was just ever such a slight different color. And I can't emphasize how little it takes. You'll notice it when you start doing this. It's just a tiny amount. It's all it takes. And it looks like your flower all of a sudden has depth to it. Gone from something that was mostly flat to something that has quite a bit of depth. It's wonderful. Alright, so now I'm going to kind of do the same thing on my leaves. I'm just going to add just a little couple of daubs here of color. Make it look like we're not totally round. Let's see. I'll put this extra color on here, and in no time, instead of having to add a lot of shadow or anything, let's see, with blue, you know, shadow with blue is what I'm talking about. It's going to look like these leaves. I'm all of a sudden trying to call leaves petals. It's different than earlier. It's going to look like these totally have some roundness to them. There we go. Perfect, just like that. And you see, in just no time at all, we've got now this beautiful stalk that we're on. I'm just going to add a little bit of extra color in here. I'm going to darken the center up even just a little bit more. I want it just really nice and dark. Give me some more of this red color. There we go. Good. So I'm going to pull this out in just a second. Get some down here. Good, good, good. Okay. And so I'm going to try to take my, what is this, a Staedtler brush. I have a craft pack of brushes here. I'm going to kind of wet that just a little bit. You can see it would just go right on there, and I'm going to pull this color out with that. And you can see I'm going to re-wet. I'm going to keep re-wetting. when I do it, I'm going to get some hard lines, I'm going to get some soft lines, but it's going to give a lot of veining and a lot of direction to the petals here. That's a big bit of water. That might be a little too much for us. That's okay. There we go. This one goes off that way a little bit. I don't want to touch anything I've done. Those go that way. Those go out there. This one I need a little bit of extra water on there. That goes out that way. I can do that right in that mix. And by doing this also, you're going to give a lot of definition to these petals. Right? It's going to look like it opens right up. There we go. Okay, now while I'm waiting for those center parts to dry right there, I got a little too much lining here. Hard edge. I don't quite want that much hard edge. I'm just going to go back in and pull a little bit more out. Perfect. I think that's great. Okay, now I'm going to mix up. I am going to do my background. I had a bigger brush here. Here it is. Alright. I don't want it to be totally dark. Let's see. I do want it somewhat dark. I'm going to mix my own gray here. See if I can get something a little more of a green gray. I guess I can just make a gray and put a little green in it. I don't want it to look totally like it's out in nowhere, hanging out there, and I would like to, yeah, that's a nice warm green gray right there. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to start up here and work my way down. I'm going to keep this really loose and fast while I do this. At least I'm hoping to. I'm going to I'll mix a little red in there. I'll probably mix a little green as we go. There we go. These big brushes are really nice. You can cover a lot of space with them as we go. I said I'm going to put some green in. I want some green right around there. I don't necessarily want the green lines. Alright, and I want it darker around the leaves. Let's see. So that we can see them, or I'm sorry, a darker hue, but maybe a smaller amount of paint right around the green. There we go. I'll get right up next to that. Should have used my angle shader for this too. It could have gotten right up to that line. Good, there we go. This is going to be totally different than the tomatoes I did a while ago, if you've seen that video. Uh-oh, don't want to go on top. The tomatoes I did with a bright kind of a yellow background. It really made it look like the picture was taken or painted in a summer day, in the middle of a summer day out in the field. This, I guess, has more of a nighttime feel to it, or a dusky feel, I guess. Let's see, that's getting right up there. That's good. You can see I got a little blue on that end. I don't necessarily want that. There we go. I should probably put a little bit more green in there. As we're coming down. Good. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. A lighter wash up here. Oi! Put it right on top of that flower. I don't want to do that. Luckily, with watercolor, we just grab it and pull it off of there. I've told you my theory before. I don't understand why people are so afraid of watercolors. They keep saying they're so hard, you can't do them. They're so unforgiving. And I totally think that's wrong. I think all you have to do is understand that you have to paint from light to dark. Instead of dark to light, we've kind of trained to think dark to light. And when people start with a dark color and then they can't paint light over top of it, I think that's why they think it's so unforgiving. I try to look at the picture, and sometimes I'll paint the background first. Sometimes I'll paint the foreground first, like this one, and it just depends upon how the painting sets up to my eye. But I think probably if the foreground has a really light subject in it, like these flowers, the petals on these flowers are really a light pink, then I like to paint the foreground first. That way if I make a mistake, something I don't really like, I can go over it with some color as I'm doing the background. And if my foreground color is going to be dark, then I like to paint the background first so that I can go over it with a darker color when I need to, if I've made a mistake with something, or if my brush strokes aren't quite as careful as they could be. There we go. So, alright, I think that's pretty nice. I'm going to try to match the color on these two sides here just a little better. If you've got two areas, you should probably, basically we're bisecting our page here with a stalk. The color on this side should pretty much match the color directly on that side of that stalk. But anyways, here we are. Here's our painting. Oh, we're not done. What am I doing? We're not done. We're not even close. Look, we need to put in our centers. I'm going to use a bit of yellow here and a bit of ochre and kind of mix the two together. Let's see. This yellow will go first. Right out like that. This one has one that comes out here, and this one. Alright, we got those painted in. I want an even smaller one. I'm going to really load up some of this ochre on this and just touch on the bottom side of these. I hope I didn't get too much. I think I got just a little too much, so I'll just take my brush and push it back a little bit. Wipe my brush and push it back, and same thing here. Wipe my brush, push it just back. I'm going to preserve the highlight on that. Come on, I guess I haven't preserved the highlight. I guess I pushed back my highlight, pushed it back in, and there we go. I've taken just a bit too much off. Put it all right back on there. There we go. There's our hollyhocks. If you've ever seen them, they look great out in the fields, in somebody's yard. A nice tall shock of color. Here's my representation of one. If you liked the video, give a like, subscribe to my channel. I would love to see you back here in the studio, and have a good night.